And the judges will be here?
Yes.
Okay. I'll bring them right in.
Morning, you may be seated. My name is Jamie Gass. I'm director of the Center for School Reform at Pioneer Institute, which is a Boston-based think tank.
Hi, my name is Sammy Osman. I'm a physician in training at Harvard Medical School, and I am the people of Lone from Arizona.
I'm Frank Callahan. I'm Director of Plan Giving at Worcester Academy in Worcester, Mass.
Maybe you could introduce yourselves and your teacher and keep your voices up because it's kind of echoing here.
My name is Erin Haley, senior at Pembroke High School.
My name is Earl Turnbull. I'm also a senior at Pembroke High School.
And my name is Kyle Richard. I'm a senior at Pembroke High School, and that's our teacher, Brandon Hall.
Great. All right, so this is Unit 4, and we're going to be addressing question 2. I'll read both the unit question and question 2. So Unit 4, how have the values and principles embodied in the Constitution shaped American institutions and practices? Question 2, during the debate over ratification of the Constitution, many Americans were fearful of creating a mighty and splendid president who possessed power in the most unlimited manner that could be easily abused. Were those fears well-founded or not? What evidence can you offer to support your response? How and why has presidential power expanded? What are some of the principal means by which the powers of the president can be limited? Timekeeper, begin.
The fears that the president would become an overpowered position are not so misguided. The framers of the Constitution wanted a president to be above partisan politics. However, George Washington was the only president to be without a political party. So after Washington's presidency, some things had already begun to change. In the Federalist Papers by Publius, they wanted the president to have earned the confidence of the entire nation, with a character preeminent for the ability and virtue. Most of the framers' ideas involved limiting the president. However, they did not want someone who would act efficiently. They did want someone who would act efficiently and vigorously compared to the deliberation that goes on in the legislation.
Presidential power has not been the same forever. The actions of certain presidents has shifted and changed how much power the presidents have and how they use it. For example, President Andrew Jackson had changed how the presidents used their power to veto. Before him, it was used rarely, but he had used 12 vetoes, more than his predecessors combined. Also, he did not use it only to veto bills, but he vetoed policy that he didn't agree with as well. Another example would be Abraham Lincoln, who was faced with a country in a civil war, asserted executive power, which he used to blockade ports in the South, expanding the National Army and Navy, and most famously suspending the writ of habeas corpus. Lincoln backed his actions up by saying that they were inherent powers of the president in times of disaster. Theodore Roosevelt is known for creating the powerful institution that the presidency is today. He created the bully pulpit, used his phrase to sway opinions and frame debates. Franklin D. Roosevelt is seen as one of the most influential presidents in all of American history. He served the longest term ever of 12 years in office. FDR took control of the policy process through the New Deal program. Roosevelt reformed government agencies, created Social Security, and began employment programs.
Presidents have extensive power, and they also have extensive limits to these powers. Congress can reject a president's legislative agenda if they find it unconstitutional, or if they do not agree with it. The Senate must ratify all presidential treaties signed by the president. In 1996, Bill Clinton signed the Nuclear Test Ban Treaty that still has not been ratified. Other things that Congress can limit, they can refuse presidential judiciary nominees. They can refuse president's funding for programs. They can impeach the president. And the Supreme Court also limits the powers of the president with impeachment, and there's a lot of other, like the citizens elect the presidents, which is also another way to limit them. So if they have a president they don't like, they can vote on a president. It's a pretty basic limit, but it's something that we all can take part in easily.
Great, thank you. So my colleagues and I will have a variety of follow-up questions, and I'll start off. The framers learned many lessons about executive power from ancient Roman emperors and from British kings. What were some of those historical lessons?
I think you could examine the King of England and eventually how they had so much power, but eventually the Magna Carta came out, which kind of suppressed the power of the king, and monarchs in general becoming extremely powerful, and a lot of Europe was trying to move away from that. And it was also seen like the French Revolution, where they were sick and tired of having no rights as citizens and the poor, and really nothing happened, but the royalty was living a great lifestyle.
I think they also learned valuable lessons from England's government saying that they didn't like Parliament when they came over. So they used that to change the government and make it into something that would represent all citizens. And I think that's very important that they did take positive impacts from governments that have came before them, but they changed it to suit our country and suit people that want to participate and have an influence on over what's happening around them.
And not just Rome and the other societies you mentioned, but societies still today who live in a monarchy, or not so much monarchy, but just oppressive government. There's like the Arab Spring, where like people are revolting. They don't want to live oppressive lives by the government. They want to live like their own people, natural rights. And I think those are the things that the founders saw, and they didn't want to have to create a government that was not fair to everyone. They wanted to have a fair, equal government.
So in your opinion, has Congress relinquished too much of its power to the president? Please explain it with the details.
I think I can agree with that, because you look at the power of the president and like what his sort of view is by the people. The people almost view him as a king, but you don't look at Congress, who are supposed to have an equal amount of power as the president. You don't look at the congressmen and say like they're just not seen as equal to the president, even like Congress as a whole. I feel like just by the society doesn't view them that way, and even in powers they're not viewed that way, because the president usually has the final say, and they're rarely going against the president.
Early in Barack Obama's first term, he tried to pass multiple bills to help our economy and help our system, but they were rejected by the Congress, and there's really not much the president can do about that. He can try as hard as he wants to try to make bills happen, but if Congress and the Senate don't agree with them, there's really not much you can do. And sometimes it takes a Democratic House for really anything to get done if there's a Democratic president. Sometimes that can be a struggle when we're in a bad economy and not the greatest times. We want things to be passed and things to get done.
Well, I think the system of checks and balances that is in place does help a lot of them, but I think to society has almost built the president up into something that it's not, and that position is seen much more to people around us. But I don't know if it's so much that the powers have been shifted. I just think it's the viewpoint of the people who are saying.
What is an executive order, and why have presidents used it to an increasing extent?
The executive order is essentially when the president does something without consulting Congress or even some of his peers. So during World War II, President FDR he imprisoned all the Japanese on most of the western half of the United States, and like completely unconstitutional, but no one said anything at the time, or well they did, but they weren't heard, because he thought it would be greater for the good of the country. He thought that it would protect Americans, and white Americans didn't disagree because they felt endangered by the Japanese. And you know, for a long time, people have felt endangered by different races because of something someone did. Even today, you look at some people are terrified of Muslims and extremists because of the extremists.
I feel like you kind of see this happen a lot during times of war, because a lot of people are afraid and they want to be protected. For instance, John Adams and the Alien Sedition Acts are a good example, in the sense that those that took away a lot of rights, and it really wasn't the right thing to do, and because they wanted to stop immigration. And afterwards, it obviously did help him because he was voted out. But I feel like you see this a lot. You saw it with Lincoln and the writ of habeas corpus. You see it a lot in times of war or struggle.
Yeah, I think an executive order is mainly used when there needs to be a quick decision, and the country has placed a person in that role, and I think that they have the right to be, if something has to happen immediately, then the branches of government, your president should be able to extend those rights that you have granted them.
So the powers of the presidency and the presidency itself was defined a lot by the person that they expected would be the first president, which is George Washington. What are the characteristics, character qualities that George Washington had that kind of helped shape the power and profile of the presidency?
Well, George Washington, there really was no set limit of how long he'd be president, but he wanted to be 2 terms, so he said no to re-electing, to trying to campaign again, get president again. He said that, no,
You finish that.
to no to that, so people in the future would, or presidents in the future would do the same.
Great. Well, thank you. I want to thank you and your teacher and your parents for all your hard work. This is really difficult material you probably won't get until college. You have a real leg up over a lot of your other classmates in that regard. I thought you did an excellent job in your introductory remarks. I like the way in which you use almost a kind of historical timeline with Andrew Jackson and Theodore Roosevelt and FDR, et cetera, to kind of help create a template that the rest of the opening comments sort of worked off of. I thought that my questions are not kind of straightforward questions in a lot of ways, and I like the way in which you mentioned Magna Carta, the French Revolution, and Arab Spring, and then I thought there was just a lot of wisdom in what you're saying about how times of crisis and war sort of often drive bad policies. John Adams and the alien sedition and internment, et cetera. So really good job.
Awesome. Just one more thing to add to that is good touch on the Arab Spring and also the Japanese executive order.
I thought the Q&A was really strong, and you seemed like you were trying to answer the questions and engaging us back and forth and trying to be thinking out your reasoning for it, and even in your first part where you were putting some logic behind some of the statements you were saying, so you did a nice job.
Thank you.
Thank you.